Hello everyone, we are the Group 6 in Psychology and Crime, and today's lecture topic is Criminal Psychological Analysis of Two Serial Killers, and my name is Zhecheng. And today's lecture will be divided into 4 parts. The first and second part is case description and analyze, and the third part is literature review. And the fourth part is, and the final part is comparison. So let's first see the case description of Ted Bundy. Well, Ted Bundy was a famous American serial killer who kidnapped, raped, and murders numerous young women and girls during the 1970s. Before he was executed, he was confessed to 30 homicides committed in 7 states between 1974 and 1978. The true number of victims is unknown and possibly higher. He sometimes revisits crime scenes and having sexual intercourse with a dead body until the remains completely decayed. He decapitated at least 12 victims and kept some of their heads as a souvenir in his apartment. And the second point is the psychopathological issues. Well, according to 70 psychologists analysis, they all agree Ted Bundy have antisocial personality disorder, ASPD, and they also thought he is the phototype of the psychopath. Generally speaking, people who have ASPD are usually have some very typical behavior traits. For example, they will ignore the law and lack of sense of obligation. Of course, Ted Bundy have these traits mentioned above. Besides, Ted was have a kindly appearance and can leave good impression to others at first time. So he was once recognized as the perfect example of the ASPD patients. Of course, there are also a few of researchers thought Ted Bundy has borderline personality disorder because of his unstable personal relationship. But the fact is that it's very hard to distinguish which type of personality disorder Ted Bundy really was. One of the reasons is that Ted indeed shows typical traits of different kinds of personality disorder. Another important reason is that he's so intelligent that he has the extraordinary lying skills and extremely charming, which means that it's possible for him to mislead psychologists to give different conclusions. And the sub-point is that the offending motives and the psychological predisposition traits. Well, first, Ted Bundy's have a very incomplete and unfortunate childhood. That is, his family told Ted that his grandparents were his parents, while his mother was his older sister in order to protect the family's reputation. But this cannot protect Ted from scandal, and he was bullied because of it in his childhood. Besides, he broke off his is his unstable relationship. He broke off his engagement with his girlfriend, who broke up with him before. So in order to revenge and show he has ability to marry her, Ted Bundy tried his best to show his ability. After he succeeded, he broke up with her girlfriend soon. And the third point is identification issues. Generally speaking, most of the serial killers have self-identification issues. For example, Ted was harmed by the scandal and experienced bullying in his childhood. His romance also did not go well. Therefore, he feels belittled and bullied in the society, and his value was gradually distorted. Murder and rape became the only way to express his depressed feelings, and the desire of the domination can be satisfied during the repeated control and slaughter, which also embodies the lack of identification from women. Well, the process of murder and rape feel emptiness inside his heart. Conversely, pursuing this kind of pleasure becomes the basic motivation of committing crimes. The next point is about victims. All of the Bundy's known victims were white females between the age of 15 and 25, and most of them are college students. They were seen as easily to pay. Besides, Bundy preferred victims who are easy to access and have a tendency to disappear without causing too much alarm, which are the typical targets that can effectively lower the risk of being discovered. The next point is the offending patterns. Well, Bundy was really intelligent that he was an unusual, organized, and calculating criminal who used his intensive knowledge of law enforcement methodology to elude identification and capture for years. Besides, his crime scenes were distributed over large geography areas, which also helped him to avoid the arrest from police. Moreover, well, as mentioned before, Ted has a kindly appearance and characteristic. Therefore, it's easier for him to lure victims and commit a crime. For example, he lured victims by pretending injure or impersonating an authority person. And after he succeeds, he will knock them unconsciously and rape and kill them. He preferred to use blunt trauma and strangulation rather than firearms in order to avoid the bullet evidence from the guns. And another important thing is that he was unusually cautious that never left his fingerprints or other evidence at the crime scenes. And the final point is the potential implication for practice. Well, as for the background, in the beginning of the 1970s, the development of an interstate highway system provided criminals more opportunity, a wider geography to roam and kill. However, police did not have effective tools or investigate strategies to solve this situation quickly. For example, the lack of computerized database and investigate data banks. And DNA was not popular use until the mid-1980s. So in order to change this situation, the police transformed themselves into the problem-oriented policing, which is an alternative approach to analyze and deal with the cases. And they also established the computerized database and popular use DNA.
Hello, my name is Zekun. I'm a member of Group 6. Now I would like to introduce and analysis a case of our group's research. It is about a famous serial killer called Kor-wan, the really nice picture. Now let's get started. Firstly, let's have a glance at the case description. Kor-wan, who killed 4 women in 1982 in his 27th. And it's because mostly he committed crime in rainy night, so he got the nickname the rainy night butchers. He was a night shift test driver who drove to pick up the target in a scheduled place, strangle them and dismember parts of the corpse's sexual organs as specimens, and store the specimens in his apartment. The case was heard in the Supreme Court on March 3, 1983, and Lam was sentenced to death. However, the death penalty was abolished in Hong Kong under British law. He was traditionally committed to life imprisonment in 1984. I think Lam has many psychopathological issues in his life, but I think the most serious one is the schizophrenic personality disorder, which is also known as the SPD. SPD can be explained as rationalize one's own behavior that cause trouble to others, and the others will feel uncomfortable and even angry to the offending behavior. Second is his desire of a slow killing. It is because all 4 victims were dead by strangulation instead of some quick and peaceful death wave. So I think Lam has some pressures in doing strangulations. And the main purpose that Lam committed crime, it's not because of his desire of sexual behavior. It is because he wanted to divide the crops and collect the organs to satisfy his extreme necrophilia. The offending motives of Lam is also very complicated, but I think the most important one is his uncompleted childhood. Lam and his mothers were abused by his father in his very young age. And his younger brother were always looking down upon Lam, which made Lam feel lack of confidence. After moving to Hong Kong, Lam and his mother still have an unhappy life since the tragedy of his family, because Lam became a negative and shy person to make friends with others, not mentioned to have a formal relationships with the female. So he did subscribe a large number of pornography magazines and even secretly take pictures of women's privacies in public toilets, twisting him a psychopath. And as I said before, Lam has SPD since his adolescence. So I think he always had a self-identification issues. For example, he tried to pursue himself in killing. Like I said, 4 victims were killed by strangulations instead of some poisoning, knife killing, and so on. And he tried to talk to the victim. It is because he barely had a chance to communicate with his friend and others. So I think when he talked to the victims about religions, social events, even the background of the victims, he can get to know himself and share his idea with others. Last but not least, Lam's sense of existence is very low. It is because he can't feel the care of the others, and he can't get the attention from the others, which made himself feel low sense of existence. As for the victimologies, 4 victims were Asian females, and they were between the age of 17 and 31. They comes from different occupations. For example, dancing club dancers, students, and cleaners, which shows the randomness of their occupations. And it is because they were females and they were taking a taxi driven by Lam in the time of rainy night, so they are easy to assess. And the main purpose that Lam committed crime is because 4 females can satisfy his necrophilia, which were made into specimen in Lam's department. And the offending patterns of Lam shows quite different from most of the sexual offenders. For example, firstly is the skillful autopsy techniques. According to the medical examiner in charge of the case said, Lam pays attention to anatomy, and there's no absent behavior in the videotape. It is because Lam may be focused really on the taking picture of the remains instead of having sexual offending to the victims. The crime scenes were mainly distributed in his work room. It is because Lam was a night shift taxi driver, So he can take this advantage to lower the attraction of the public, so he can make his crime more convenient. And thirdly, Lam was very infatuated with the crops. Like I said, the reason why he killed 4 women instead of satisfying his sexual behavior with the women, but to make them into specimen. So I think he has very fascinated with the crops. And next is the strangulation. Strangulation takes longer and more physical strength than knife killing and poisoning, etc. And so if it is not a strong psychological quality of the killer, it is likely to stop the behavior. So I think Len has the typical antisocial personality because he can always find a pleasure by strangulation, no matter the first case committed by accident or the next 3 cases committed by planning. Last but not least, there's no real sexual fantasy about victims. It is according to the statement of Lam. There's only 1 corpse of victims were raped by Lam, and Lam feels very embarrassed, even awkward about this behavior. It can prove that Lam has no interest about this behavior, sexual behavior. We can also learn some potential implication for practice from these cases. As we know, Len has incomplete childhood, which shows as a tragedy to Len. So I think some models, such as the good life model, can help them shape the correct value and goals to pursue. So we can help them to adjust the normalize more quickly. The control of the recidivism rate and the crime prediction are also important. It is because the policing resources are limited in our society. So the police should make a statistical analysis of where the crime rate is high and then put more resources in this high crime rate area, such as patrol, investigation methods. Even police can have a cooperation with the communities. And the police should make a preliminary prediction on the types and timing of crime that may occur in different regions to lower the high crime rate. And lower the crime rate and prevent some serious crimes happening to some extent. And allocate monitoring resources here so you can put all the resources together again and reuse this resource more effectively in preventing crime and arresting criminals. Thank you.
Is Zihan and am the member of the group 6. My student ID is 55969900. And now I will start my part of my presentation. Well, my part is literature review and comparison. According to the existing literature, most definitions of serial killings include 3 elements: murderers and victims, time and motivation. Hickey studied more than 200 serial killers and found that the perpetrators were often about 30 years old, 90% of whom were white. On average, the killer killed 8 to 14 victims in 4 to 8 years. As with single homicides, 12% of the perpetrators are women. Women are more likely to commit murders than men, probably because they were not suspected at the beginning of the police investigation. From the victim's point of view, the victims tend to be young and vulnerable white women, which accounts for 67% according to Godwin's report. In the choice of victims, serial killers generally choose based on the victim's availability, vulnerability, and desirability. Availability refers to the victim's way of life or the victim's living environment. That is, whether the victim's way of life has the opportunity to kill, such as prostitutes, people living alone, or homeless people. Vulnerability refers to the degree to which the victim is vulnerable to the perpetrator. Basically, serial killers usually regard young women in or near universities as well as elderly poor people living alone as first-class prey. Desirability means that the victims accord with the preference of the perpetrator, such as gender, age, occupation, and so on. The interval advantage of a series of cases is also known as a cooling-off period, which can be days, weeks, or months. The cooling off period is the main difference between the serial kills and other single or multiple homicides. The killer will take advantages of the cooling off period to plan and prepare the crime carefully, in order to achieve his goal to the maximum extent possible. In addition, in terms of criminal motivation, although most serial killers have severe personality disorders, this is in itself does not explain their behavior only. According to the information interviewed, Burgess and others believe that serial killers often experience impaired attachment in childhood, formative traumatic experience, and a private inner world of violent thoughts and fantasies. This combination makes individuals isolated, attentive, and lacks a socially recognized sense of behavioral restraint. For the two cases we selected in this report, compared with the existing literature research, there are many similarities and also their own uniqueness. So we will start about comparison. The similarities, well, about the perspective of the choice of victims. These two cases reflect the characteristics of availability, vulnerability, and desirability. The four that met in case 1 were all young women or girls, while those in case 2 were white women between the ages of 15 and 25. Most of them are college students. In addition to the poor defense and easy success of girls or young women, it also reflects the purpose of the two killers to meet their own sexual needs. And secondly, from the point of view of the method and process, the two killers made use of their dominant position to get close to the victims so as to get the opportunity to get close to the victims. In case 1, the killer was a taxi driver who worked the night shift, and according to the case, we can find that except for the reason why the third cleaner got into the taxi, the other three victims are all got into the taxi on a heavy rain, drunk, and in a hurry. So the killer is good at taking advantage of his professional advantages and judging the other also sets up the situation. In case 2, the killer usually attracts victims in public places by pretending to be injured or pretending to be an authority figure based on his handsome and attractive appearance. And it can also make him gain trust or sympathy so that he can rape and kill live. Thirdly, from the point of view of the tactics of the killer, it also reflects the killer's abnormal interest in the corpse. In case 1, after brutally killing the victims, the deceased habitually dismembered the body, especially preserved the deceased's sexual organs, and even raped the body in the fourth case. In case 2, the killer often had sex with the body until it completely rotted. He also beheaded at least 12 victims and kept some chopped heads as souvenirs in his apartment. Fourthly, from the perspective of the murderer's criminal motive and social background, the murderers in case 1 and case 2 have a tense relationship with their families. They were bullied and blamed in their childhood and hated their families. Therefore, their miserable childhood and disharmonious family relationships are the important reasons for their psychopathy. Well, and we will about differences. In case 1, the psychological motivation of Lam Kor-wan's series of homicides is not only his own mental illness, but also his abnormal satisfaction of his own sexual needs. He was once arrested for forcing a woman into a public toilet with a knife and touching her sexual organs with his hand. This was also reflected in the subsequent series of sexual organs. Ling's inferiority complex and later low social status caused by rupture of his family relationship from an early age made him unable to communicate with women through normal channels. So it was also an important reason for his crime. But in case 2, the killer has excellent education and social status, as well as charming appearance, and his behavior focuses more on social revenge and the satisfaction of position, dominating and venting. Not only because he accidentally discovered that his sister is actually his mother and his beloved parents are his grandparents, but also because his girlfriend abandoned him, which deepened his hatred of society. Therefore, continuous and frequent suffering can give him the satisfaction of dominating and occupying other people's lives, and his desire to rule can also be satisfied in repeated control and slaughter. The process of murder and rape filled the emptiness in his heart, thus making the pursuit of this pleasure the basic motive of his crime. And this slide is about our reference. Thank you for your listening. Thank you very much.